Senator Cassidy, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Hey, sir. Thank you for testifying. My understanding is that the aluminum and steel tariffs will not apply to finished products, rather just upon the sheets of steel and aluminum themselves, or the aluminum bars. Is that correct?
As far as I know on that, Dr. Cassidy, that everything is still being finalized. I've not read the final order on that, and so I would have to get back to you on it. I think that it'll all be visible shortly, but it's not something that specific topic is not something that I've been briefed on.
And Senator Portman mentions to me piping, which is important in the oil and gas industry. Then in that case, you may not be able to answer the rest of these, because my question was, my series of questions are around the fact, has the administration modeled the effect of these tariffs upon companies shifting manufacturing overseas so as to make a finished good and then to bring it back across the border, raising their input price, if you will, so therefore it's more profitable to construct overseas. Do you know if they are modeling that?
At the Council of Economic Advisors and in the Commerce Department and at the USTR's office, there's an enormous amount of modeling capability that we provide analysis of.
Do you know the results of that? What I'd like to know is really, if it has been modeled, what is the expected effect of businesses offshoring to use lower?
I am not aware of the CEA staff having modeled the offshoring part. We've modeled the impact on the steel industry.
Then let me ask. I mean, I don't mean to be rude. I just have a short period of time. I have a friend back home in Morgan City, Louisiana, has a fabrication shop, and he is competing against Koreans who have lower labor cost and probably subsidized steel, and from China. And they will just ship modular units into Southwest Louisiana to be put into a petrochemical plant. So he's competing directly with a foreign competitor. His labor costs are higher, he's closer, transportation costs lower, but now his steel costs are going up 25%. Mm-hmm. Has that been modeled, the effect upon our domestic fabricators and manufacturers who are directly competing with those who will not suffer from such a tariff?
I without referencing specific deliberative work that CEA has done for the president, I can say that the economics literature has looked at previous episodes like this and found that that there are upstream or in-stream benefits to the steel industry and downstream harm. That the downstream harm has been cited in some of the previous questions.
Do we know?
But again, this 232 is a national security judgment by the president.
I accept that. And again, the earlier it was commented that General Mattis suggests it's not the case, and that we actually have adequate domestic steel production for our defense industry should we ever have to have a problem like that. But I'm also, you mentioned the previous effect. I'm told that when George W. Bush put in such a tariff, that another effect was that dock workers around the nation, in New Orleans, Port of New Orleans, by tonnage, a major product shipped is steel. And I was told that when George W. Bush put his tariffs in, that there were just loss of employment in our ports, specifically the Port of New Orleans is the one I'm most familiar with. Mm-hmm. Can you comment on that? Is that something
I could get back to you on that. I certainly have read the literature. Gary Huffbauer is an economist who worked on the Bush steel tariffs and has some published papers. But the specific question of dock workers and the experience back then is not something that I've studied, but it would take me just a moment. I'd be happy to get back to you.
And then you mentioned that there is upstream benefit for the steel workers and then downstream benefit for many others. If you could reflect on when George W. Bush did this, the net effect upon employment in the United States, was it positive or negative? Were more jobs created because of the tariff or more jobs lost from downstream effect?
Academic literature found very small net negative effects back then. And, I would say that if we were going to do a full economic analysis of this, we would I'm not a national security expert, and so how it affects national security is not something I've studied or necessarily could quantify. But I think that we should also recognize that American workers in just about every industry are disadvantaged by the broad asymmetries that we highlight in the economic report of the president, where, again, if we try to sell a car into Europe, they charge a 10% tariff. And if we try to sell a car into China, they charge a 25% tariff. And if we can envision a world where our trade negotiators can do a better job negotiating reciprocal trade deals, then the benefit from that reciprocity would be enormous for American workers and much bigger than any of the net negative costs that would come from say, the Huff-Power paper.
I'm out of time, but it would be nice if that were, and I don't mean to be offensive when I say this, more than conjecture, but actually been modeled. And some of the stuff I'm listing, it seems like it should be modeled before something so broad is put in place. I thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you.